Good evening, and welcome to our continuing series, Explorations in Savitri. Today, we complete Canto 8 and the world of falsehood. We are on page 230, the fifth line, and I wanted to say, as we conclude this series for now, how grateful I am to Alokbhai
I have enriched
for sharing with us so much and making this such a wonderful experience for so many people. They write to me all the time about how much it means to them. So again, thank you, sir.
I am speechless because I think it has been a joyous sharing, especially with you.
Thank you.
Savitri is always joyful, anywhere you read it from. But before we start this last session on this canto, just a few things by way of summary. The action of falsehood. So, Sri Aurobindo has shown us how this falsehood acts upon earth and in men. One action is that it imitates the truth. Several places we saw, which would include even things like calm, joy, spirituality. It will imitate. So it erects a imitation of the Godhead, and therefore it diverts us and distracts us and takes us into various bylanes towards the darkness. The second thing it does, it is opposes truth. It denies truth. It hates light. It's intolerant of peace. So this constantly its action is creating disturbance, turbulence in this world, doesn't allow it to flow smoothly towards the divine. And the mother says that when you experience these things, just ignore it and move on your way. Don't start grappling with it because it'll suck you more and more and more and more towards itself. So several places when somebody asked her that, how to cure evil, she said, don't look at it. Don't spread it. Because the moment you do it, you perpetuate it more and more. Then the third action which we have seen is that religions, many of them have been in their origin beautiful things, given their limitations in space-time context. They are born out of some revelations, partial or otherwise, that's not the issue. But somebody came in touch with a higher consciousness, if not the highest, and called it God, and religions were born, and it helped mankind in a certain age, certain context. But some of these religions, those which continued with a fresh revelation, survived the onslaught of falsehood. But in some of the religions, when the originating impulse and the founder withdrew, the throne was left empty. And after some time, maybe a few centuries down the line, it became an empty shell which somebody could go and occupy, like an abandoned house. And it may be a huge house, and if there is nobody living, eventually some people barge in and they occupy and they become owners. So some of these religions which, alas, not all of them, but some of them, which alas had a beautiful beginning, have become now very asuric in their nature. And it's important, it's part of the work that people should realize it and either bring in a reform within the religion, which is very much possible by going back to the origin, by turning it into yoga and spirituality and not a belief system. Especially he says here, those religions which force things, which create rigid dogmas, which all must follow, and if they don't follow, they are going to be punished by God. These are the kind of religious cults which have come up, and they're very dangerous. Third, Sri Aurobindo brings out ideologies which are not only God denying, but they are also by their very nature very violent, filled with hatred. Some of these ideologies are very narrow and stifling. They don't allow, they talk about freedom, we read that, but they don't allow any freedom, either of speech or action. They're intolerant about it. So there are ideologies like that which may deny religion, but they stand at par, sometimes even worse than religion itself. I must say this because very often people say, oh, mother said we have to go beyond religion, so religion is bad. But they subscribe to ideologies which are worse. So they stand at the same level. Fourth, certain ideas and philosophies like psychoanalysis, we read about it. Those which show that they sublimate filth, that is the language, which create a cult around power of a very crude kind, cult around crude vital joys, which exalt filth in human nature, those instincts which are buried deep in the subconscious. They say this is the real thing, and all else is a coloring and painting. So they are also very dark, and they spring from falsehood. And this also is important because sometimes I have seen people, even in Sri Aurobindo forums, talk about psychoanalysis and Sri Aurobindo. And I wonder that how could somebody who has ever read Sri Aurobindo, even a little, you don't have to read a lot, would ever even imagine comparing the two. I can understanding psychoanalysis in the light of Sri Aurobindo. But I just can't understanding Sri Aurobindo in the light of psychoanalysis, because it's just like understanding the sun by the filth on the ground that we see. Then another thing, fifth, at an individual and collective level, their action of the powers of falsehood creates strong confusion, misunderstanding, suspicion. This I see very often. Even individuals, they become suspicious of each other. Groups become suspicious of each other. And we read those lines: the arm that embraced held is dagger stab. So you're full of suspicion, but outwardly you are being nice. And it takes many forms. One of them is outwardly you'll be very friendly. You'll go behind and speak ill of the person, and speak in very dark terms. So and so is such a person. This is an action of falsehood, and we need to recognize it. We are supposed to see the divine in all, not the asura in all. We end up doing that. Another action which it creates is despair and depression and gloom and doubts. And Sri Aurobindo says one should be very careful, especially despair, depression, self-depreciating thoughts. We read about that. Guilt, feeling of unworthiness, helplessness. This is what we were reading. This is characteristically action of falsehood.
I imagine you've seen your share of it.
Yeah, all of.
In psychology, my God.
Yeah, I know. But even individually, one has to go through these states, however passingly, and recognize for what they are worth, and then cast them aside, knowing that it's nothing but the work of the powers of falsehood, which want to take you away from the path you have chosen. Especially things like despair and gloom. The seventh or eighth thing that he says in their action is that they make you believe in harshness, cruelty, hardness, as I said, a perverted sense of power, and they erect it, your own magnified ego, as an image of God, and you begin to worship it. So you believe that God punishes and rewards the worshippers and punishes the wrongdoers. Now this idea of punishment has a certain kind of a far off truth, in the sense that if you do evil deeds, you cut yourself from the delight of the divine. That, if you ask, it's the punishment. But you are further away from the divine. If you are cruel, you are very far away from the touch of the divine, which brings peace, liberating peace, and a delight. But it's not punishment in the sense of plunging into hell, or giving you a birth with distorted limbs. That's not what the divine indulges in.
And there is always redemption.
Always redemption, always grace. So we have to believe in grace and not in punishment. So these are some of the things. And of course, finally we saw terrorism and its ugliest forms, bombs and violence. And this is not in no way, it has nothing to do with the divine. However, having said that, it is true that the divine can use anything and everything. And why it is so, that we will read now. So we begin, and comes these important lines. In anguished gulfs opened, its anguished gulfs opened in his own breast. He listened to clamours of its crowded pain, the heartbeats of its fatal loneliness. So this also is their action. They make you feel, I am alone, nobody is there with me, nobody understands me. That dark loneliness. There is a divine loneliness where you love to be alone because you have a chance to be with your lover and beloved.
Alone in the alone.
Alone in the alone. But this loneliness is that feeling of, being so small, so little. Empty. When divine is there, how can one ever be small and little? So these states open within us, as Ashupati has gone through them of course, very objectively, but also within himself. So the sadhak of the integral yoga has to pass through these states. Above was a chill, deaf eternity. So when you are caught in that state, if you speak about divine, who knows where is divine? It's a deaf eternity, dull eternity. So those realizations, experiences can get clouded. In vague, tremendous passages of doom, he heard the goblin voice that guides to slay. How does it guide? Mother has spoken of these censors, which tell you're bad, you're unworthy, you're not good, you don't deserve to be in this yoga, you don't deserve grace. And mother was asked, he said, my child, who can say that one deserves grace? Grace is unconditional, it is there for all. We have to open to receive it. If we talk about deserving, who can deserve grace? So the goblin voice that guides to slay, and faced the enchantments of the demon sign. So we know one such demon sign was the reverse swastika. There are such demon signs.
Yes.
People once told me, and I'm just sharing. I'll not say which particular religion, but people will identify it. They said, look at this religion. They are also using the word Om. Now this is Om in a distorted way, in twisted way. I said this is also Om. So it struck me. I didn't want to disturb somebody's faith. That yes, but if you distort the Om, just like when you reverse the swastik. It's no more swastik, but it's opposite.
Or the inverted cross.
Not the cross. It is some other.
No, I say the inverted cross.
Yeah, the inverted cross.
That's the black mass.
That's the black mass. So when you reverse the thing, it's no more the same. Yeah. You can't just play with the figure and say, oh, it's Om upside down, it's Om sideways hanging. It's not Om anymore. So, in fact, even when we keep Sri Aurobindo and the mother's books, we should be careful how we keep them. You gave that example of keeping Savitri.
Yes.
And another example is where, somebody had kept some other books on Sri Aurobindo's books. And the mother pointed out that, you don't do, actually you inwardly feel it. How do you do that? I mean, Sri Aurobindo's book is, how can you just casually put anything else? So these are unconscious actions of falsehood, which create their own atmosphere, and we should be so careful. And face the enchantments of the demon sign, and traverse the ambush of the opponent snake, which of course we know is Vritrasur. This snake lies in ambush and a little carelessness, and he is there to bite. In menacing, this is not the snake of Adam and Eve, incidentally. Snake of Adam and Eve is an evolutionary energy. In menacing tracts, in tortured solitudes, companionless, he roamed through desolate ways. So even Ashupati has to go through these experiences. We remember, great yogis, Vasisht Rishi. He went through an experience of such deep depression that he jumped himself into one of the rivers to die. And he had tied himself with strong chains. So the river got so frightened, as the legend goes, my God, he will plunge and die. I will incur sin. So she cut off his bonds. That's why the river is known as Vipasha. It cuts the bonds. So, but you can imagine great seers, can go through these stages. So one should know Ashupati is going through this. Where the red wolf waits by the fordless stream. So red wolf is again the...
it's the Vedic symbol.
Yeah, Vedic name for it.
Yeah.
This is Vritra snake, and the red wolf also has a name.
It's in Puranis.
Yeah, it's there. Anyways, so there is this wolf which is a symbol of darkness and forces of falsehood. Fordless stream. This is a stream which you just cannot fathom. You cannot
cross it.
You cannot cross it. Impenetrable. And death's black eagles scream to the precipice. Again, we see a reversal. Yeah. Eagles, who are basically, intuition they bring. But these are the dark eagles. And met the hounds of bale who hunt men's hearts. Again, hounds. There is the hound of heaven, who is again a power of intuition. But these are hounds of bale, who drive people towards mobs, and they hunt men's hearts. baying across the veldts of destiny. Veldts is archaic word, fields of destiny, plains of destiny.
Veldts in South Africa are still called
Yes, they are
veldts.
there. They are mainly in South Africa. In footless battlefields of the abyss, where you don't have a foothold, you don't know where you are stepping. Fought shadowy combats in mute, eyeless depths where nothing is seen, assaults of hell endured, and titan strokes, and bore the fierce inner wounds that are slow to heal. So, if we are not ready to go through it, that's why Sri Aurobindo repeatedly cautioned people not to take up this yoga unless they have a call. He's a strange master. Normally, people say, come, come, come. I'll give you this, I'll give you that. He's saying, don't come.
Just the opposite.
Unless you are ready to go through it. He says, you have to be ready to risk everything, including the possibility of failure.
Yeah.
If you are ready for it, take it. Because you have to endure at any point of time. You may give up, turn away. It's a tremendous destiny which is being given to us. So without, it cannot be just given just like that. Sri Aurobindo speaks of that in the Law of the Way. A prisoner of a hooded magic force, captured and trailed in falsehood's lethal net, and often strangled in the noose of grief, or cast in the grim morass of swallowing doubt. But doubt is so dangerous because it's endless. Sri Aurobindo in one of his letters says, even if I write 600 pages,
I remember that.
you will still doubt,
Yes.
because it's doubt for doubt's sake. So he cautions us not to indulge in doubt for the sake of doubting. It's all right. Seeking mind is a different thing and doubting mind is a different thing. Seeking mind is a very positive state. It aspires to know, but it has implicit trust in the guidance and the guru. But a doubting mind doubts and ends up doubting the master himself. So, one has to starts doubting the doctrine, the truth which has been given to us, starts doubting the way, starts doubting oneself, starts doubting everything. So, it's lethal. And he uses the word grim morass. It's a boggy field where the more you then try to come out, the more you are sunk into it.
And that's such a poignant line, the wounds that are slow to heal.
Slow to heal, yes. Or shut into pits of error and despair. He drank her poisoned draughts till none was left. So one has to go through it thoroughly. Because subconscious cleaning, when it takes place, it's that power, perfection. She will not leave halfway through. We can't say, okay, mother, we postpone it for next life. Once the cleaning starts, she will say, my child, endure it, have faith. I am doing it for you. But if somebody starts, whining and complaining, and then it's like it remains incomplete. So it touches rock bottom. That's what it meant. That, till none was left. That poison which all must drink in the passage. But when we have trust, the divine drinks it for us. In a world where neither hope nor joy could come, the ordeally suffered of evil's absolute reign, yet kept intact his spirit's radiant truth.
There it is.
Today only somebody asked that, why so-and-so was suffering so much. And number of them, such questions. Well, it is the passage. If you ask them, those who are rooted in yoga, they will not say suffering. They will say, my lover loves me too much. So he's not allowing me.
And this was a being of joy.
Yes. And quite a few.
Yeah.
But if you ask them, Pavitrada, people felt, oh, he has cancer, he is suffering. Ask Pavitrada. No. He would limp his way through tremendous pain to reach the mother and see her every day. That was his quota of delight. Others, how would they understand? And what a glorious passage.
Oh my goodness. Yes.
So if you ask them, they will not say suffering. They will say, well, it's part of, I have signed up for it. It's part of the deal.
Do all of you know the passage? Some of you. You could tell it.
Which passage? Pavitra?
Which was leaving India, going into mother.
Mother says, whole night he was pumping, came out of his body, and everything right down to the very cells He put himself into the mother and says, he is there with me, complete, intact, just as he was living.
Yes.
And she herself said, I didn't know he could do it.
Yeah, she said in this life,
Yeah,
as
because
it was,
it's not
in this life,
easy.
it was not possible for him to do it.
It's a unique kind
Yeah.
of departure. To be completely intact right down to the physical consciousness. So, it's those who go through it, they know it. Yet kept intact, his spirit's radiant truth. This is, by the way, the sign. If when you are going through this passage, this challenge of nature, if you are conscious of this radiant truth within, it's a passage, faith, hope, devotion, everything remains intact. Then it's a passage. If they are completely clouded, if you begin to turn away, if you are swallowed up by it, you are just like anybody else caught up in the web of nature. This is one indication. There are many others, but this
In the early days of Oroville, I had amoebic dysentery for 5 years. Pain was unbelievable. So I wrote to Mother and I said, Mother, can I just offer myself to you and let happen what happened? Or do I have to take this medicine which is as bad as the dysentery? And Mother said, pray to me and take the medicine.
Wonderful. Yes. Incapable of motion or of force. In matters blank denial, jailed and blind. This is where the final test of the yoga lies. Pinned to the black inertia of her base, he treasured between his hands his flickering soul. This you have to keep. And it remains intact through all this blank denial. His being ventured into mindless void, intolerant gulfs that knew not thought nor sense. Thought ceased, sense failed. His soul still saw and knew. Again, the same thing I would quote. I've seen this process in some other people. Someone asked me, in care, Desiree, why they go through this state? No thought, no sense. Still they are surviving. Somebody would think they are suffering. If you take a close look, no. They are growing toward the divine, through the last ditch battle, of which deep inside they know that the victory is certain. Because people see momentarily from the outside. I know them because sometimes every day I have to wake them up and ask. Such a joy. I have seen, people completely in dementia.
Yeah.
Totally gone. They would not respond to anybody. And then when you say, good morning, what a smile. It's such a lovely smile that I am amazed.
Yes.
All day they would be sleeping as if they are moribund. Just say good morning. Fold the hand. Some of them can't even fold the hands. We have somebody 99-year-old and she can't even smile properly. So she'll just say, But that is like a laughter, guggling laughter. And every time I see, I am, humbled and chastened that look at, it's an inspiration.
Absolutely.
So, I have seen Minudi, for example. She is now passed away for 10 years almost, with brain tumor, completely tied to the bed. She used to just practice witnessing. She ended up being a witness and of course surrendered to the mother. But even till the last days, she is blank look and you say, Minudi, good morning. Just a lovely, beautiful smile. It's all there, intact. Buried deep in matter, the work is going on. You should never feel pity for somebody who has turned to divine. It's not good for yourself, not good for the person, and certainly it's not a good judgment on the divine who is working through. His being ventured into mindless void. In atomic parcelings of the infinite, it goes still deeper. To that extent, you have to go through that state of utter division. That Kutch story, he is not only swallowed by the guru of the demons, but he is burnt, he is powdered, his ashes are made to be swallowed by the guru of the demons, so that he is completely destroyed. But he comes out because he is on a mission. He knows why he is there. So that story, even Agastya Rishi goes through that. Near to the dumb beginnings of lost self, He felt the curious small futility of the creation of material things. That state comes because you are completely covered. Or stifled in the inconscient's hollow dusk, he sounded the mystery dark and bottomless of the enormous and unmeaning deeps, whence struggling life in a dead universe rose. There, in the stark identity lost by mind, he felt the sealed sense of the insensible world and a mute wisdom in the unknowing night. Mother speaks of this experience when she went down, 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 and he saw the being who was lying with eyes closed. When she goes there, he opens the eyes. Mother says is the first avatar, the first descent, which has gone in the depths of inconscience.
And when she descends into the inconscient and rises up.
That
That
is
is
where
new
our
world,
message. Yes.
sees the new world.
So that's what we are going to read now. Into the abysmal secrecy he came, where darkness peers from her mattress, grey and nude, and stood on the last locked subconscious floor, where being slept unconscious of its thoughts and built the world not knowing what it built. This what we just shared.
Yeah.
And in the Vedas, this is the legend of the eighth son of Aditi. We know of the seven sons, but the eighth one is a castaway. So he is cast away into the darkness. But he emerges through the struggling. And he is a form of sun god who is called Martand. Because he is a fierce one. He fights, struggles with darkness and emerges. There, waiting its hour, the future lay unknown. That's why Sri Aurobindo could see what future is there already buried in the depths of time, and he could help it to emerge. Why others couldn't see? They couldn't go see beyond nirvana because there the script is there. There is the record of the vanished stars, much that has happened lying in the subconscious realms, beautiful things like the mother's pink bathtub. I think I spoke about this story earlier. There in the slumber of the cosmic will, he saw the secret key of nature's change. That message of the mother you were referring to.
Yeah.
A light was with him, an invisible hand was laid upon the error and the pain, till it became a quivering ecstasy, the shock of sweetness of an arm's embrace. It's a marvelous experience to have. When you go into that pit, you're crying, you are desolate, you feel you're alone and wretched in this world, and there you have the divine embrace. So long back, I remember I had written on this, not on Savitri, but this experience summarized in lines that cast away from everything with all the ropes cut, you threw into the abyss. You threw me into the abyss. But what a marvel. I see that your hands were waiting there to receive me. But this is the passage. When you don't see the hands, you see nothing. And you wonder where you are going to land. But there are the hands. Then it's a marvel because you have chosen the night to give your divine embrace. Because, nobody else will know and see that. It's such a wonder. It's such a joy because he has deliberately put a veil of night so that none else knows except you and the beloved. It's an amazing experience. So,
And now these beautiful lines.
He saw in night the eternal's shadowy veil, knew death for a cellar of the house of life. In destruction felt creation's hasty pace, knew loss as the price of a celestial gain, and hell as a shortcut to heaven's gates. These lines must be engraved in the heart for all who are on this path.
Yes.
Loss. Mother goes on to say you have to renounce the experiences. She says, I understood what in India is meant to renounce the experiences. Sri Aurobindo himself did it. You cannot otherwise take this yoga. If you are stuck to that experience, your soul will stay there. And that's why he said people like Swami Vivekananda, they will not turn back to take this yoga. Because you have to renounce it, that beautiful state. and enter into this dark, dingy despair. Of course, you're always conscious deep within of your soul, but your vision gets clouded by the mud. Not clouded, but that stench, that filth, that poison. And yet you have to go through it. So here comes these lines that what we should remember when we see night, well, he is hiding right behind. When we see death, well, it's simply a room through which we must pass in the house of life. When there is destruction, creation's hasty pace, and the greater the destruction, the greater the creation intended. That's what Sri Aurobindo reminds us. Loss, well, if you are not willing to lose everything, don't ask for everything. But don't lose with the idea of asking and gaining. It's giving for the joy of giving. And finally, hell, well, my lover is taking me through the shortcut. Bumpy drive. Now comes very interesting modern images. You see, one of the differences again in the yogic people of Vedic vision, people often, keep referring Veda and Savitri. You will see images which are archaic, like cow, the horse. Now we don't connect with the cow and horse the way we connected as our forefathers did. We would see trains and aeroplanes which the Vedic forefathers didn't see. So we need to understand their meanings. Otherwise, if we go strictly to the Veda, somebody says that, I saw in my dream that I was traveling in a bullock cart. Or no, why bullock cart? I was traveling in Ford car and suddenly it break down. What does it mean? It will be difficult to understand. Because I am still with the symbols and images are used in a certain, in a certain period of time. So now, but when we see these images, or you are being in a space satellite, you are going into space, interstellar travel. So they are the images which will come now. So see these images. Then in illusions, occult factory. So suddenly factory comes, occult factory. And in the inconscient's magic printing house. Tone were the formats of the primal night. So, if you see I've entered into a printing house where you are tearing some paper, so you would know. And shattered the stereotypes of ignorance. Alive, breathing a deep spiritual breath. This is the integral yoga pranayam. It's not about how many times you are breathing the same breath. Breathe once the divine's illimitable air and see what it means.
Wonderful.
That's it. See what it will do. Magic. Nature expunged her stiff mechanical code and the articles of the bound soul's contract. Look at, formats, contract, printing house, factory. Falsehood gave back to truth her tortured shape. So beyond a point, we must know that, it ultimately ends the night. Annulled were the tables of the law of pain, and in their place grew luminous characters. These lines which follow.
I love these lines.
Yes, and I always say when people ask, okay, what is Savitri? I say, read these lines and you will know what is Savitri. How Savitri was born. Why Sri Aurobindo gave Savitri, which is a scripture which again I must say is not given anywhere. There is none parallel of its kind. Because he had plunged into the darkest depths of the ignorance, darkest abysses, and brought out of that the light. So therefore he could give Savitri. The skillful penman's unseen finger wrote. I visualize Sri Aurobindo. I can't,
I know.
Visualize
at the table.
At
the table.
The skillful penman's unseen finger wrote his swift, intuitive calligraphy. Earth's forms were made his divine document. This is the original Veda. Veda is not some books with some slokas. That is only a little bit. Original Veda is there in the heart of living creatures and in every atom the Veda is there. And that's what Sri Aurobindo says, the opening of the eternal Veda secret in the heart of man. And Kabir puts it different way. He says, that even if I were to turn the entire oceans into ink and all the trees into pen. I cannot write everything about the Lord who is hidden everywhere in creation. So this is the original Veda, which is the divine document. And that's what we see in Sri Aurobindo, how he has taken up everything and turned it into, a joyous disclosure of the beloved. The wisdom embodied mind could not reveal. In conscience chased from the world's voiceless breast. This is the action of Sri Aurobindo's readings and Savitri. In conscience chased.
Yeah.
One cannot read Savitri every day and yet feel gloom. They just chase away, the lines chase away. Read from anywhere, anything. This I can assure from experiences of people. Read it every day, you won't suffer from depression. They have the power to magically chase away everything. Why? Because transfigured were the fixed schemes of reasoning thought. Don't read it with this. It's supra-rational truth. Fixed schemes. If this is so, why that is so? And what happens then? Arousing consciousness in things inert. This is the action of Savitri. It's not to do with meaning and understanding. It arouses consciousness in things inert. He imposed upon the dark atom and dumb mass the diamond script of the imperishable. What is Savitri? Diamond script. Whose script? Imperishable. As long as humanity lasts, Savitri will remain. And even if humanity goes away, Savitri will be rediscovered by Sri Aurobindo in a new body. Because it is the one which will take us to the future. Inscribed on the dim heart of fallen things, a pain song of the free infinite. So people who try to dabble into what meter is it? It's iambic pentameter. So silly. You are trying to again bind the infinite into your forms. What meter can bind? This is poetry beyond meter.
How many pronouns?
How many pronouns? How many these and its and ifs and buts? Is this what Savitri is meant for? But human mind wants to cut and slice and this and that, and ultimately it wants to. But the Lord says, play any which way, at least you are reading. But what it is, He is revealing to us a pain song of the free infinite and the name, foundation of eternity. Each line is Om. And traced on the awake, exultant cells. Look at it. Cellular yoga, Savitri. Traced on the awake, exultant cells. In the ideographs of the ineffable. Ideographs are, symbolic language. Anything you want to represent instead of word, through symbol. There are two ways we can. Words are symbols, or you can have those symbols. Like you have those mandalas and, yantras. They are all symbols. So, ideographs of the ineffable, what cannot be known, yet through symbols it is known. The lyric of the love that waits through time. This is Savitri. It's the lyric of love of the Divine Mother who waits for us since the beginning of creation. That's why it starts from there, ends with the dawn. She is waiting since then. So, it's the lyric of love. And the mystic volume of the book of bliss. If you can feel joy reading Savitri, then you are on the right track. Because it's the book of bliss. And look at it. And the message of the superconscient fire. This is the message of Savitri. The divine, what is concealed, He presents to us. So we have the Rig Veda, the message of the superconscient fire. We have the Sam Veda, the whole song of the infinite. And we have the Yajur Veda, the action, the sacrifice of the divine in creation to redeem it, taken to utmost level, because the Vedas are still about human journey. But this is the original from which the human journey derives itself. It is the divine who sacrifices himself. Therefore, the law of sacrifice comes. So, Savitri is about the sacrifice of the Divine Mother, the lyric of love that waits through time. The infernal gleam died and could slay no more. Hell split across its huge, abrupt facade, as if a magic building were undone. Night opened and vanished like a gulf of dream. I can. So many things come to my mind, but we'll into being's gap scooped out as empty space in which she had filled the place of absent God. Night splitting, and then what emerges out of it is Savitri. I can share it. I had undergone a surgery under anesthesia a few years back. First surgery, so it's scary. You become unconscious. Not a good state ever to be in. But you have to trust what to do. You have no choice, so you go through it. I still remember when I woke up, somebody asked me, people were around, how are you feeling? How are you feeling? And I remember the line I said, all can be done if the God touches there. First line.
So, isn't that interesting?
Yes. And then said, is there any pain? So I'm saying, Savitri, 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 all tipsy. And then lapse again. So beautiful. And I had other experiences, but this part.
Same experience. I was under anesthesia and they're trying to get me out and I'm reciting Savitri. They don't know what's going on.
Joy. Hell split. Yeah, even the surgeon. He was all confused. I have done everything and he's saying God touch. He must have thought. And he is asking me whether I have pain and I'm saying Savitri, Savitri, Savitri. And I was experiencing a bliss inside. Actually, hell splitting, night vanishing, all this, is literally like that. Suddenly you are awake.
And I only realized I was awake when I began reciting Savitri.
Yes, same here. So, there poured a wide, intimate, and blissful dawn. Healed were all things that time's torn heart had made. So much we carry like that. All that is divided and scattered within us as fragments. And sorrow could live no more in nature's breast. Division ceased to be, for God was there. And what division? Even between the abyss and the highest. Even that division Savitri heals. So, permanent cure for depression, Savitri. Temporary cures, psychiatrists, counseling, drugs. Permanent cure, Savitri. And much, much more. This is just the minimum. Not only it heals us of depression and division, but gives us oneness and the bliss. Where will we find this? And beauty it's in English language. Come on, we don't need anybody to teach us. One good thing that the Englishmen did through all the invasions and loot and plunder, they taught English to everyone because Savitri was to come in English.
Yes.
I thank them for only one thing. It doesn't matter, all your crimes are washed away because the Lord gave Savitri in English.
But he also said that it was not England that called him, it was France.
Of course.
So, last two
lines. The soul lit the conscious body with its ray. Because now, the body which is held so much by the abyss, matter and spirit mingled and were one. Before last two lines we'll read again. When mother was asked, she said, insincerity is to dig a deep abyss between God and world. And she said, the biggest abyss is between spirit and matter. Savitri heals it. We close with these two lines. The soul, or three lines. Healed were all things that time's stone heart had made, and sorrow could live no more in nature's breast. Division ceased to be, for God was there. The soul lit the conscious body with its ray. Matter and spirit mingled and were one.